Welcome to this episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Wes Eggett. After spending the last 20 years in a variety of leadership positions, and as a student of leadership myself, I started Leading in Dentistry to share what I found and to continue learning with you. If anything from this episode stands out, check out the show notes, our online courses, or one-on-one coaching on leadingindentistry.com. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Wes Eggett. For those of you new to the podcast, I'm a practicing associate dentist just outside of Denver, Colorado, and I started Leading in Dentistry to help develop the leadership skills of each team member in the dental office, not just the business owner. And I started this podcast specifically while I'm not an owner of any dental practice, as I really want to get across the message that you don't need to wait until you're in charge to be a leader. And today's episode is no exception. It is for anyone who, whether you are the business owner or a brand new dental assistant, something that we all have in common is that from time to time, despite our best efforts, we will come across a period of time where we're just not doing our best, or we just can't seem to get things right, or we just don't seem to have the motivation that we want. And during these slumps, we seem to be unable to pull ourselves out of it. Sometimes we struggle asking for the right help, or we don't know exactly what it is that needs to get done. And there are a number of things that set us back from our expectations that we have for ourselves and the reality of what we're actually accomplishing and what's going on around us. So today, what I wanted to do is go through and talk about how to destroy these slumps, how to find our way out of these little dark patches, these dark periods of time, and get back on the path of having our reality meet the expectations that we have for ourselves. And to do that, I want to give you 4 tools, 2 questions and 2 quotes that help me whenever I'm going through one of these periods. And I hope they can be helpful for you. They have been things that have pulled me out of a slump, and if they can get you back on the right path, then I ask you to just share it with somebody else, because if there's something that is beneficial for you, I guarantee that it's going to be beneficial for someone else as well. So the first question that I want us to ask ourselves is, what does finished look like, or what does done look like? Oftentimes, the big thing that's getting in the way, so the big barrier between us and what we want to do, is we don't really know what it is that we want to do. We kind of have an idea in our head of what the end result will be, but not exactly what that looks like. It's not well articulated. It's not well defined. So a good example of this is something we went through recently with our hygiene department. We had multiple department meetings where every single time we were talking about improving the handoffs from the hygienist to the dentist, where the hygienist needed to give the dentist brief, concise, but important information that was going to help the dentist understand what was going on in that patient's mouth, and also get an exam done quickly enough that we could diagnose some important treatment and also get the hygienist back to their regularly scheduled programming, where they could get back to getting the cleaning done. And it was interesting sitting down with the hygienist after these meetings, where they would, try to check in on how they were doing with handoffs, but it always came back to them asking, what is it that you really want during the handoffs? What is the most important information? And despite us as doctors knowing that we wanted good handoffs, we didn't really articulate what a good handoff looked like, what we wanted the hygienist to go through point by point and give us the relevant information. We said we want the relevant information, but what is the relevant information? And so it took us defining what done looked like, what finished looked like, what success looked like in order for them to get over that slump. So for us, we ended up coming up with an acronym. The acronym is hygiene, HYGEINE, and having them run through that. So the first is H, a happy hello, and then Y is using the word yet. So saying this patient has an MOD on number 19 that we haven't got to, but they're letting us know that it's not bothering them yet. Lets the patient know that this is something that needs to be addressed because eventually it will bother you, and we haven't got to it yet. Then we have them talk about G, the gums, and then I, the intraoral photos or the images, what kind of things they've noticed on the x-rays. Then we talk about E, the exam gets done. And then N, we talk about the next steps. And then the last E is to edify and educate, reinforce what the doctor talked about. And so we had this problem. how do we get the hygienist to give us better handoffs? How do we get consistent handoffs and concise handoffs? And they were the ones that brought it up to us that, we were not communicating as clearly as we needed to be. We needed to know what done looked like. And when we knew what done looked like, we could get past this question of what is a good handoff. So the first question during a slump, to get yourself out of that slump, you need to ask yourself is, what does done look like? You may have an idea of what it feels like, but you haven't articulated what it looks like. What does success look like? If you want someone to do something, if you want yourself to do something, what does it actually look like when that thing is complete? When you figure that out, you can really dial in what steps need to be taken in order to get that to happen. That's the first step to getting you out of that slump. Now, what's interesting is that oftentimes when you define what success looks like or what done looks like, sometimes you'll end up with a giant list of things that need to get done in order for that to happen. And that's where the second question comes in to help you get through a slump. And this is what's called the focusing question. I've heard this from a number of different people, but where I was originally introduced to it was from Gary Keller of Keller Williams, the real estate company. And this was from his book called The One Thing, and he talks about how you can focus on just one thing that's going to help you achieve your goals. So he uses this question called the focusing question. And when he has a giant list of things to do, which now we have after we've gone through what does done look like, you have a list of things you need to get done, and then you have to ask yourself, which of these things, if completed, will make the rest of the things easier or irrelevant? So you look at that list and ask yourself, if you have to pick one thing on that list that's going to make everything else easier or irrelevant, what is that one thing? And so you first have defined what success or what done looks like. And then you ask yourself this focusing question, of all these things that I could do, which of these things is going to make anything or everything else easier or irrelevant? So in our practice recently, I came across this question, or I had to use this question to get us through a slump, just a general slump. This was kind of an across the board, everything feels like it's just not quite right. And how could I fix all those things by pulling one lever? It turns out that lever was a big lever, and it was doing a hard culture reset, just taking the culture of the practice and redefining our core values. We didn't even end up changing any of our core values, but we went through and talked about what each core value meant and how we were going to enforce those core values, not just enforce, but get them infused into our day-to-day. Enforce sounds a little strong, but how do we get them to really be a part of who we are and what we're doing? And if we could reset that culture, it would make everything else easier or irrelevant. A lot of the discussions we were having, a lot of the problems we were seeing, all came back to how people were approaching the problems and their attitudes and their feelings towards the practice or their feelings towards each other. And if we could reset the culture, it would make everything else easier or irrelevant. So to get through that slump, which I can feel ourselves pulling out of that right now. We're on the very tail end of getting through that. That culture reset was what we needed. And so the two questions we've talked about so far to get through a slump. The first is, what does done look like, or what does success look like? The second question is that focusing question. Which of these things, if completed, will make the rest of the things easier or irrelevant? Just a quick interruption for the new graduates out there. Every summer, the dental corner of the internet lights up with the same question. What's the most important skill a new grad should focus on? Is it implants, molar endo, surgical extractions? And year after year, the answer from experienced dentists is the same. It's leadership and communication. These are the skills that elevate every part of your career, no matter what your role is in the dental office. That's why we're offering special pricing on the Leading in Dentistry Leadership Development Program, exclusively for new grads and newcomers to the dental field. Whether you choose our 90-day guided course with bi-weekly coaching through the Teach Leadership model, or the on-demand version to go at your own pace, you'll get access at a significantly reduced price. 2025 grads or new hires get 50% off. 2024, 40% off. 2023, 30%. And it's not just for dentists. This offer is open to hygienists and any new dental team member who started in the last 3 years. If this sounds like something you are interested in, head to leadingindentistry.com/new to learn more. That's leadingindentistry.com/new to learn more. Those are the first two questions. Now, I want to go into two different quotes that also help inspire me, motivate me to open my mind a little bit about what it is that I really want to get done or how to get through these slumps. Now, the first quote is, "The success you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding." I'll say that one more time. The success you are looking for is in the work you're avoiding. I actually have this written on the whiteboard in my office right now. It's at the top. It's been there for probably a month and a half because there are a couple of things that I know I need to be getting done, and if I'm not doing them, I'm never going to see the progress that I want to see. My expectations will not be met by my reality. An example of this comes from our practice when we talk about onboarding protocols. So if we had to ask ourselves once upon a time, we need onboarding protocols. We knew that's what success looked like. We even had them well defined by the consulting company we were working with, the Team Training Institute. Gave us this framework for the 3-3-3. What does a staff member need to know after the first 3 days, first 3 weeks, and first 3 months? We sat down and we wrote all of that out. We knew exactly what done looked like. And then the focusing question helped us to dial in all those things that were on that list, the things that were most important during each of those time frames to make everything else in their job easier or relevant. But then, if that's not implemented, it does not matter. And we noticed that over a period of time, some people were being hired, and about 3 months into their training, I'd ask, how's the 3-3-3 going? Or what questions do you have on your 3-3-3? And found out that they had never been given one, and we had to figure out why they weren't given that, and what they were missing by not having it. And it was just a testament to me that there was some work that we were avoiding that we knew needed to get done. We even knew what finished looked like. We knew how to focus in on those different things on the 3-3-3, but we were avoiding that work, and it was keeping us from being able to hold team members accountable. It was keeping us from being able to see the success that we needed to see out of these new hires. If we thought that the problem was we just didn't have enough staff, well, an untrained staff is not going to do you any better than having no staff at all. And so understanding that success that we were looking for was in the work we were avoiding helped me when we got a couple of brand new hires to be very proactive about putting together their welcoming packet and putting in the 3-3-3 and setting time aside with the new folks in order to go through those 3-3-3s. So now we just had a fresh wave of new employees come in after a little bit of turnover. And I have set aside on the calendar every week for the first 12 weeks to sit down with them and go over the questions that they have on their 3-3-3 and figure out their onboarding packet with them and helping them feel like they are not just being thrown to the wolves and trained on the job. And so having that intentionality has been super important. And I wouldn't have done that without having this quote on the wall that reminds me the success you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. I'm not really big on quotes or types of coaching that make people feel put down, but I do take a quote like this as a little bit of a challenge that, hey, you're avoiding some work. What is it? And get after it. That way you don't have to look at this quote again 3 months from now and figure out why you haven't seen the progress that you're looking for. So we've gone so far through the what does done look like question, the focusing question, which of these things, if done, will make the rest easier or relevant, and then we've talked about the success you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. This brings me to the last quote on helping us get out of slumps, and that is, your success in life is largely determined by the number of uncomfortable conversations you are willing to have. I'll say that one more time because it's a long quote, but it is this. Your success in life is largely determined by the number of uncomfortable conversations you are willing to have. And this quote comes to us from Tim Ferriss. He's the author of The 4-Hour Workweek and many other resources if you ever need to get out of a slump. But this quote has always helped me to remember that if there's a big barrier between you and where you want to get to, oftentimes, especially if you are a self-motivated person, you'll be able to get through the things that you need to do, but there's something outside of your control. It's often in the control of someone else. and you're not going to get past that little hurdle until you have that big conversation. And oftentimes it's not even a big conversation. It's just a conversation that needs to happen with someone else, someone who's holding some of the cards, someone who may just need a little bit of correction or may need a little motivation themselves or may need some clarity. And if you are constantly avoiding the conversations that you need to have, you're never going to get on the other side of them. So I think those two quotes, even put together, are super helpful. The success you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And oftentimes the work you're avoiding is an uncomfortable conversation. And if that's the case, and you feel uncomfortable with interpersonal communication or being able to get on the same page as others, or you feel like you're not going to be able to convey what it is that you want to somebody else, or you won't speak clearly enough, focusing in on your communication skills before you go into one of those conversations is going to be extremely helpful. This last month, in the month of May, I did a deep dive on communication because I'm not afraid of having difficult conversations, but I went into one about a month and a half, 2 months ago, where I did not feel like I brought my best self to that conversation. And because of that, I didn't really get out of it what I needed to, and I didn't help the other person get out of it what they needed to. And so I went down this rabbit hole, this deep dive on communication skills and interpersonal communication. I'm going to save my takeaways, the things that I learned from that deep dive for the next podcast episode. But I just wanted to reinforce that if you are not going to have those conversations at all, you won't even put yourself in a situation where you know that your skills need to improve. You'll just live in fear of having a conversation, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So again, if you find yourself as someone who feels like you need to improve in your communication skills, just recognize that you are not alone. It happens to everybody. And in the next podcast episode, I'm going to go through a couple of the takeaways that I had through my deep dive into interpersonal communication and how to handle these difficult conversations. So one more time, let's go through the list of things that can help you get through a slump. They are the 2 questions and then the 2 quotes. The first question is, what does done look like? Making sure you have clearly defined what it looks like when you've gone through the steps you need to go through, and when you have accomplished that goal, what does done look like? The next question is, which of these things, when completed, will make the rest of the things easier or irrelevant? So which of these things, when completed, will make the rest of these things easier or irrelevant? The first quote is, the success you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And the second quote is, your success in life is largely determined by the number of uncomfortable conversations you are willing to have. If you go through these 2 questions and these 2 quotes, I guarantee you'll be able to find something that will help you get out of your slump. It may not be immediately, it may not look the way that you want it to look, but you'll be able to find something that's going to help you get on the other side of this little dark period of time and get back on track. And with that, always be leading and always be learning. We'll see you next time. And that's it for this episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. If you learned something today, please leave a 5-star review and share the episode with a friend. If you're ready to take the next step for yourself or provide leadership training for a team member, visit leadingindentistry.com to check out our online courses and one-on-one coaching.